Good evening. Thanks for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you tonight. A relief rally across global stock market as investors hope the banking turmoil will be contained. The two-day meeting of the US Fed kicks off. 72% of market participants expect a 25 basis point hike. As per the CNBC Fed Survey, 52% say the Fed should hike rates. The Sensex gains over 400 points, the Nifty gains over 100 points as positive global cues lift sentiment on Dalal Street. Bank stocks rebound, mid-caps rise in tandem with the blue chips. The government is in a race against time to meet its disinvestment target of 50,000 crore rupees with barely 10 days to go for the financial year to close. The government still short of 19,000 crores. DPAM indicates it's in favor of including dividend receipts as part of its revenues. That's an exclusive. Hindustan Zinc will pay more than 10,000 crore rupees to shareholders as the fourth interim dividend this financial year. Anil Agarwal's Vedanta will get 6,500 crore rupees of its share, helping it meet its debt obligations. HZL's total dividend payout climbs to nearly 32,000 crore rupees this year. A government probe concludes that Hero Electric in Okinawa wrongfully claimed electric vehicle subsidies for imported components. Heavy Industries Ministry informs Parliament that models of these two companies have been suspended from the subsidy scheme after receiving reports from testing agencies. Interpol withdraws a red corner notice against PNB scam accused Mehul Choksi, allowing him to fly across the globe as long as he doesn't set foot in India. The CBI says the decision was taken on the basis of imaginary conjunctures, promises to exercise all options to get the notice restored. Unseasonal rains destroy crops across large parts of Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Punjab and Madhya Pradesh. The Met Department advises farmers across large parts of western and central India to delay harvesting. China's President Xi Jinping and Russia's Vladimir Putin hold talks for the second day in Moscow. Putin says he's open to China's proposals on the war in Ukraine. Japan's Prime Minister heads to Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, after his India visit. Well, the top story this evening, a relief rally being seen across stock markets as investors hope that the banking turmoil can be contained. All eyes on the US Fed, which has started its meeting today, and a decision on a rate will be announced around midnight tomorrow. While bank stocks are recovering in trade, the issues plaguing the sector have not vanished. S&P and Moody's downgrading UBS's credit outlook to negative after it took over Credit Suisse. In fact, S&P said it sees, and I quote, material execution risk in integrating Credit Suisse into UBS, given the size and weaker credit profile of Credit Suisse. Meanwhile, Credit Suisse bondholders are considering legal action after the Swiss regulator ruled out any relief for additional Tier 1 bondholders, wiping out nearly 17 billion worth of their investments in the bank. And after the Silicon Valley Bank saga, the U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has said the government will move to protect depositors once again if necessary. She said the government intervention was necessary and similar action could be warranted if smaller banks suffer deposit runs that pose the risk of contagion. And amidst all of this, the U.S. Fed decision looms large. As for the CNBC Fed Survey, 72% of market participants expect a 25 basis point hike. But Wall Street is divided on whether the Fed should hike rates at this point at all. Steve joins us now with the highlights of the CNBC Fed Survey. Steve.
This is an unusual meeting in extraordinary times, and it gives us a sort of unusual survey with a lot of uncertainty and disagreement about what will the Fed do and what should the Fed do. Take a look at our Fed expectations chart. 72% say there's going to be a hike, which is pretty much in line with how the market is priced. Interesting because our survey was from the end of last week. But 52%, only 52% say the Fed should hike. So some percentage think the Fed ought to hold its powder right here. And the peak rate remains pretty high, actually higher than it was at 5.20 for June. But then 86% say the Fed either cuts or pauses at the next meeting in July. So, okay, here's the thing. We asked, what's the more important driver of Fed policy? Protecting financial stability and the health of the banking system or reducing inflation? 52% say it's financial stability rather than inflation. Here's some of the commentary we got. Joe Lavorgna from SMBC Nikko Securities writes, continued hawkishness from the Federal Reserve would justify a further marking down of our forecast for growth and recession severity. And then we have Mark Vittner of Piedmont Crescent Capital. He says the Fed's earlier missteps on inflation and its abrupt correction this past year laid the foundation for the crisis we face today. The Fed should not compound its earlier mistake by giving in too early in the inflation fight. What about the outlook for recession? 55%. It's up from the prior survey at 51. 57% say it's going to be a mild recession. And then interestingly, September 2023 is the average start date. That's a quarter later than the last survey. That's because we've had this strong growth in the first quarter, and the average length of the recession seems being 8 months. The Fed's decision tomorrow comes down to pretty much what you guys were just talking about. I think whether it feels the banking turmoil has settled down and whether it can handle monetary policy and inflation with one set of tools and financial stability with a different set. That's what Lagarde said last week, guys. I just don't know if the Fed wants to run that experiment right now.
Steve, many thanks for joining us. Steve Leesman there on the Fed expectations and, of course, the market at this point in time penciling in a 25 basis point hike from the Fed. Now, the global relief rally rubbed off on the Wall Street as well. The Nifty and the Sensex gaining over 0.5%. Financials leading from the front today with the Nifty Bank seeing gains of close to 1.5%. And a quick check on gold prices, which remain near 52-week highs even after cooling just a bit. Investors are waiting for the Fed decision, and international prices are just below the $2,000 mark after breaching that a few days ago. Prices in India have also eased slightly below the 61,000 rupee mark for 10 grams. The story is similar in the crypto market, where the anticipation of the Fed's decision has kept Bitcoin above the $28,000 and Ethereum over $1,800. Well, that's the crypto and gold check, but on to the action from the crude markets. Oil prices stabilizing as the deal between UBS and Credit Suisse have eased worries about a severe recession and hence a fall in demand for crude. Prices continue to hover near the 15-month lows. The government has cut the windfall tax on crude petroleum from 4,400 rupees to 3,500 rupees a ton. However, it's hiked the special additional excise duty on export of diesel from 50 paise a litre to a rupee a litre. The windfall tax on petrol and aviation turbine fuel continues to be nil. Here's a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. It's a race against time for the government to meet the disinvestment target of 50,000 crore rupees. With barely 10 days to go for the financial year to close, the government is still short by 19,000 crores. Sapna joins us now with the details. Sapna, pure disinvestment receipts, it looks like unlikely that the government will meet that shortfall. But if the government were to club what it counts as addition to the disinvestment receipts by way of dividends, the number or the gap narrows quite significantly.
Well, first, in terms of the pure disinvestment numbers, it's going to be very challenging for the government to meet that huge gap between the actuals and the aim. Aim is 50,000 crores. They are sitting on 31,000 crores at the moment. So in 10 days, it's going to be quite impossible for them to meet the numbers, and the factors are pretty much clear. The current market volatility, and before that, the face-off with the Vedanta Group on the HZL, on the usage of HZL's balance sheet to buy out those international zinc assets by Vedanta Group. These factors combined together have really weighed negatively on the disinvestment drive for this current quarter. But having said that, in terms of the dividend receipts, the government has done pretty well, and I suppose the Deepa would like both these heads to be considered together, the disinvestment receipts as well as the dividend receipts. Both put together, they are at over 83,000 crores out of a total target of 93,000 crores. So, from that perspective, it's not a negative story, but yes, in terms of pure disinvestment, some disappointment there. Apart from this, we're given to understand that possibly on the tax revenue mop-up as well, the government could have a marginal shortfall, somewhere around 1 to 1.5% out of that big, massive target that they have kept. In fact, the revised estimates had pushed the numbers upwards. So, out of 30.47 trillion rupees, somewhere around 30 to 60,000 crores could be the likely shortfall as far as the tax revenues are concerned, and that also is a possibility as of now. Looking at the current trend, you never know, it could be a different story by 31st March. So on the disinvestment front, it's going to be a significant shortfall, but in terms of the tax revenues, maybe a marginal shortfall.
Sapna, many thanks for joining us. And speaking of dividends, the board of Hindustan Zinc has approved the 4th dividend this year. The company will pay an interim dividend of 26 rupees a share to its shareholders, amounting to 10,000 crore rupees. And this will help parent company Vedanta meet its debt obligations. The total disbursements from all 4 dividends amount to nearly 32,000 crore rupees. Now, for context, Hindustan Zinc paid 1 dividend in FY22, 2 dividends in FY21. According to Bloomberg data, Vedanta has dollar bonds to the tune of 9,400 crore rupees maturing in 2023. Lenders to Reliance Capital will get into a huddle to conduct the second round of auction for the debt-laden company. Sources say lenders are unclear if bidders will participate without the final orders from the Supreme Court. Yesterday, the Apex Court ruled in favour of a second round of auction. The lenders are also looking at setting the base bid for the second round at 9,500 crore rupees, with 8,000 crore rupees in upfront cash. Opposition parties protesting from the first floor of Parliament, demanding a joint parliamentary probe into the Adani controversy today. Parties include the Congress, the DMK, RJD, CPIM, among others. They held a demonstration raising slogans and hung up banners saying, "We want the JPC." More pink slips expected at e-commerce giant Amazon. The firm has announced a fresh round of layoffs and plans to cut 9,000 jobs in the coming week. And this comes only weeks after the company laid off around 18,000 employees. CEO Andy Jassy says the decision was necessary for the long-term success of the company. Months after conducting a probe into misappropriation of subsidies and violations of localization criteria under the FAME scheme, the government has concluded its report against 2 electric vehicle players, that's Hero Electric and Okinawa. It may soon take action, including clawing back of subsidies that have been wrongly taken, and even file an FIR. Parikshit Luthra standing by with the exclusive details. Parikshit, we learn that there are at least 12 other companies being probed currently. What are you picking up?
Sources telling CNBC TV18 that the government will soon take a call on action against Hero Electric and Okinawa for alleged misappropriation of FAME subsidies. In fact, a decision could come any day now. The government is considering the registration of an FIR and clawback of subsidies wrongfully claimed. Sources have told us that the probe against Hero Electric and Okinawa have been concluded, and these companies have taken subsidies on components which are shown as indigenous but were actually imported. CNBC TV18 has also picked up that Hero Electric and Okinawa cited non-disclosure agreements with component suppliers. The probe against 12 other EV players like Benling, Okaya, Jitendra New EV, Greaves, Revolt, Kinetic Green, Avon, Loya Auto, Tukral Electric, Victory Electric is underway right now for the same reasons. Sources say, along with the probe report on violation of localization criteria received from testing agencies like ARAI and ICAT, the government has also taken inputs from the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence and the Ministry of Commerce. Okinawa Autotech told CNBC TV18 that there has been no misappropriation of subsidies by them, and the government has not yet informed them about any action. They also said that they're not considering any legal action or remedy to challenge suspension of subsidies to Okinawa Autotech as yet.
Parikshit, many thanks for joining us. In fact, staying with that story, the Department of Heavy Industries has told Parliament that models of 2 companies, Hero Electric and Okinawa, have been suspended from the subsidy scheme after receiving reports from testing agencies. The government has said that processing of pending claims for these 2 companies has been stopped till they show compliance with the guidelines. Leaders from the aviation industry have gathered in Delhi for the 3-day CAPA India Aviation Summit. The event showcases the industry's growing optimism about the future, with many airlines announcing expansion plans. Madhya Mujawar and Danish Anand get us the highlights from day 2.
It was day 2 of the 3-day CAPA India Aviation Summit here in Delhi. Aviation Secretary Rajiv Bansal was the first speaker at today's event. He said Indian carriers need more pilots to fly the 777 or the wide-body aircraft. He also said budget carriers in India need to add more wide-body aircraft in their fleet for India to become an international aviation hub. CNBC TV18 also caught up with international airlines attending today's event. Sir Tim Clark, the president of Emirates, and Bilal Ekşe, the CEO of Turkish Airlines, both said India needs to revisit the bilateral air service agreement with their countries and needs to allow more seats to these carriers, but they said the Indian government is currently very reluctant to do so.
International hubs will require wide-body aircraft. And as of now, Air India and Vistara are the only 2 airlines which have wide-body aircraft. That's why we are encouraging the smaller carrier, not the other carriers who have narrow-body aircraft, to go in for wide-body. All the Middle East carriers have been asking for additional seats over the last several years, but we have not been giving any additional seats to any Middle East carrier.
It's not just about Emirates, it's about the Indian carriers as well, because they're operating at very high seat factors on the Dubai-India market. So long as you don't give them extra seats, then it deprives them, what we reckon, up to $1 billion a year of added income. But that's for the Indian government to decide, not us.
I think it is the time to get the more destination and more frequency. It is not necessary to speak what is the past. It's the time. Every airline is here mentioned that their air service agreement it is 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and our air service agreement is amended in 2009.
Well, Tata-owned Air India is about to get its second home in London. As from the end of this month, 4 Indian cities will now be directly connected to the London Gatwick Airport.
There's 4 routes they're going to be operating. So Cochin, Amritsar, Ahmedabad and Goa. Which are all obviously quite different in terms of the relative attractiveness to the UK outbound market as well as the India market as well. We think they'll be phenomenally popular. We're not surprised that they've chosen to operate them from Gatwick, and we've been really pleased to work with the Air India team.
Well, Indian airport operators and international airlines looking at the India opportunity, hoping for more seats to be opened up. Time for a short break, but coming up, Interpol withdraws the red corner notice against PNB scam accused Mehul Choksi. That and more when we return.